Hi everyone. Hi everyone. It is awesome to be back at our virtual roundtable, especially after summer. It's good to get back in the saddle and spend some time with all of you. And before we kick it off and I introduce our guests, I want to take a moment and welcome all of our guests and all of you as well for our sixth roundtable. Your questions, debates, and discussions is really what makes this unique and makes me come to work on Roundtable Day really happy. For some of the regulars, we've changed the setup a little bit. So you can just join live through presly.com/live. No need to install anything or log in. You'll just see the video on that page and our live chat just below here if you're on presly.com/live. And you can just start chatting simply by logging into YouTube or with your Gmail and you're good to go. All right, so with that out of the way now, it is time to introduce my guests for today. And my guests for today, we did a little bit of a different approach this time, right? We've had different experts on from all different fields. We even spoke with journalists last time. We are on the receiving end of our pitches. But this time, we started from the idea of finding people who are actually getting great engagement on their pitches and ask them questions on how they are achieving those. So at Presly, we have the awesome advantage of having thousands of PR professionals that use us. So we started digging into engagement data of Presly users, and based on high engagement of their pitches, we selected Karen from Embassy, a full-service PR and content marketing agency from Belgium, and Jacob from Echos.com, a full-service communication agency. So Karen and Jacob, welcome to our roundtable. How are you?
Thank you.
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. Great. So, Jacob, maybe I need to get this out of the way. It's pretty early where you're currently at, right?
Yeah, no, it's I'm used to it's 8 a.m. here, so it's not too bad. But hopefully, I have my coffee and I can be sound of mind and be of value to this.
Of course. So great. Let's start with you, Karen. Both of you are, of course, experienced in PR and experienced with working with different clients in very different sectors. But how did you ended up where you're at now, Karen?
Well, actually, for me, I ended up in PR in general, a bit by coincidence, let's say. So when I graduated, I studied communication sciences. I didn't really know exactly what direction I wanted to go in. And I was looking actually for an internship abroad. And more or less by coincidence, I got an offer for an internship at Porter Novelli in Paris. So that's really where it all started for me. And I liked PR so much that when I came back to Belgium, I looked for a job within PR. Mm-hmm. And then I moved a bit from agency to agency, and now I'm at Embassy, which is a PR and content marketing agency in Antwerp.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Cool. It needs to be a little bit louder. Karen, you need to speak a little bit louder, is what the technician people tell me here. So that would be good. All right. Good. Jacob, with you, where did you? How did you ended up where you are now?
Yeah. Fresh out of business school, I did a few short internships at digital marketing agencies before joining the agency where I'm at now. I really enjoy agency life just because it's competitive, and what I like about PR is it's creative, and I like working with many different brands because it keeps every day fresh, and there's never really a dull moment, and it requires a lot of collaboration to successfully launch a product or put together a story to get brands coverage. So I think I really enjoy that creative process.
Yeah, cool. And do you feel that the process of doing PR, and especially those interactions with journalists, that they evolved over the years that you've been doing this, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think it's always evolving. I've been in PR it's been about almost 5 years. In North America, I think we've had some crazy shifts. For publications, the revenue models have drastically changed, and there's been a big shift towards affiliate for product journalism. And then for more in-depth journalism, you see lots of paywalls and it's more exclusive content. So on our end, I think it makes it much more difficult because there's these sort of incentive nuances with affiliate that need to be established with your brand. But then also on the other side, with much more exclusive content for brand stories, you need to make sure your pitches are really on the money and going to the right people. So it's really, I think, on two sides, it's really honed how you pitch, and you have to really work with the brand to make sure that they are established with affiliate channels.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Karen, do you feel that over here in Europe and Belgium as well, as Jacob has been telling, like a little bit more difficult to get kind of the news across than, let's say, like 5 years ago?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's actually what I was thinking as well, in the sense that we really noticed that editorships have shrunk also. So journalists are even busier than before. I mean, they were always quite busy already, but now you really notice that there's less editors covering still the same amount of stories or even more. So it's harder to get a hold of him to make sure that they have the time to network, to have a chat and say, like, what are you working on? So yeah, I really notice this as well. I've been in PR for about 8 years now, and it's really a difference back then and now.
So in a sense that you need to like do more work to kind of like get to a success with a specific like journalist or influencer, or in a different way? Yeah,
I think so as well. Yeah, for sure. You need to make sure that you're like spot on from the beginning with the right person, with the right topic. Otherwise, you won't get a chance, because they get so many emails that your email will get snowed under.
Yeah, makes sense. So we've been like working like hard around pitching, because we feel that, like, especially from our customers, we hear a lot that it's becoming harder to like reach out. But like diving a little bit deeper into that, what do you say that most people get wrong when they start pitching, Jacob?
I think initially, I came from digital marketing. And one thing I had to get out of my mind was, we have a term for coverage. It's called backlinks. And it's more of like you're link farming. It's a quantity over quality. And as soon as I joined the PR agency, that sort of mentality was quickly thrown out by some of my veteran colleagues. And I had to really focus and like, okay, no, journalists are human. They have a very, very low threshold for BS, and they want a good story, and really their job depends on it. So either you're an asset to them, or you're an annoyance. So you really want to make sure you're an asset, and with that in mind, you're going to really make sure you're pitching the right journalists, and you're really getting to the point, and you're cutting all the fluff out.
Yeah, and Jacob, Ecos describes itself as beyond traditional public relation. Is that specifically what you mean with that, or is there kind of a bigger meaning behind that?
Yeah, no, I think traditional PR, I think a lot of brands struggle to get outside of what the concept of PR is. And usually they just tend to think that's just, general press, magazines, TV, radio. And usually they have some sort of comms department internally. But I think what agencies really bring to the table is, a lot of agencies have adapted more to how the media is changing. And that really steps outside of just having a strategy behind, a traditional, what you would think is a traditional launch. So I think that when we say we're authentic PR, we work with brands not just to take their press release and shoot it out, but like we're partners. And so it's more of an authentic relationship.
Yeah.
And between the brands and between the media.
Yeah, and especially because you came more from that digital link building environment, like where link building is more kind of, I don't know, maybe a little bit transactional even in a sense. Where do you feel kind of most comfortable in? Because link building, of course, has its value as well, and it's a little bit more measurable in a lot of cases. Like where for you is that line between, okay, now I'm basically like focused on the SEO part of it, and now I'm more focused on the actual pitching or PR part of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really do prefer the pitching and PR aspect of it, but I think a background in digital marketing actually really helps explain the value of recent coverage to the journalist. Sometimes, I mean, sorry, not to the journalist, but to the brand. I think a lot of times brands overlook the value of a PR win, thinking like, oh, well, it only had X amount of traffic to my site, and that's the ROI. But there's so many different factors that come into that. There's the domain authority which helps your search engine results. You're going to show up higher on Google rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Those links live forever, and then you can use those wins internally to share with your brand stakeholders to help generate just clout and excitement within the company. So there's so many different ways to use it. And I think the digital marketing background has really allowed me to communicate that to brands.
Okay, cool. So, Karen, you spoke briefly about, of course, kind of like reaching out to journalists where you basically don't have anything to pitch, but just checking where they're working out, more of kind of a general approach of relationships building. Like, of course, before the pandemic, I'm guessing you, for example, saw them on press events or launch events and so on. You could kind of easily walk up to them with a drink and like making it a little bit more kind of organic. Like, have you guys figured out ways how to do that in the post-pandemic way, where we have like virtual press launches and virtual press days and kickoff days as you guys are planning?
Yes, we did. So actually, 2 times a year at Embassy, we organize our kickoff days, which is like 2 days where journalists and influencers drop by. We have a chat with them, we have drinks, we explain to them what the new collections are, what kind of news we have about our clients. And then, it's really the best moments to network and to have a chat and also like get to know them a bit better on a personal level. And so, of course, because of the pandemic, we couldn't do that in a physical event in April. So we came up with a different approach there. So we did like a combination of video contents that we made. So we have a showroom, and there each PR manager did like a tour of the showroom where we explained in a video what all the new assets were. And then these were shared on our social media, so influencers and journalists could have a look at them and see what could be relevant for them for their stories. We also did like a Facebook live stream. So there we had great interaction as well with the journalists and influencers. So it was really nice to see. We had a lot of views, and people commented like crazy. So that was really cool to see that. Yeah, we still got that engagement. And then we also made a digital magazine. So it was really like a digital format of a magazine to really help journalists, because of course they don't have a lot of time. So we like pre-prepared the articles for them that they could easily reuse actually in their own articles.
Okay, makes sense. Go ahead, Jacob.
I was like, that's really cool. I was just commenting on what Karen with the digital magazine.
Yeah. And have you you guys like have something which you call your Reveal conference, like Reveal Global Media Conference? How did this idea existed, and what's kind of the goal with it?
Yeah, in February when everything kind of hit, we were on the verge of a few trade shows, and just from feedback from journalists and brands, e-com was doing great. Content, online readership was like record highs for online publications. So they needed content. The brands needed to get their message across. So we came up with really a simple idea, reveal. So rather than recreate like a big trade show digitally, we kind of focused on our brands, and then also just brands we admire. And then we also partnered with other agencies and brought an audience of important journalists eager to see what's new and important, and then basically just gave them a stage to tell their stories, and just kind of like what we're doing here, just have a host and make sure that it flows nicely.
Okay, cool. And these things that you kind of built during these like events or like virtual events, like do they help you pitch stuff afterwards? Because we clearly saw that both of you guys get high engagement on the pitches that you send out. So it would be interesting to learn that you've seen a switch between kind of having these events regularly and maybe having a higher success rate on the pitching, Jacob.
We haven't looked at that specific data. I think one thing we're dealing with is there's just so many variables going on right now. So it would be hard. There'd be lots of biases in that, but I do believe just in that it has helped lots of relationships, and also we're going to be doing our third reveal in October, and the feedback is amazing. So I think it's almost like the journalists are expecting this, and hopefully it has, hopefully it continues, something like this continues, and there's a need for it even, in a few years when we hopefully have trade shows and go back to work.
Yeah. Is that still something, like, Karen, for you, a question maybe that you hope for, that it kind of all goes back to the way it was? Is that still a hope, or do you think, like, listen, no, we need to deal with this?
We're positive about the fact that someday, I guess, it will be back to normal.
Yes.
We also noticed, because we asked our journalists some feedback on how they experienced our alternative kickoff days, and we do notice that there's quite a lot of people that are still saying we do like to have the personal contact and really talking face to face. It's still different, of course, than through a screen. So we are confident that someday it will return, and we try to set up now, like in smaller groups or on personal appointments, still these personal interactions. But it's of course harder, and you can't see as many people at the same time.
No, indeed, that makes sense and understandable. Well, both for like Echoes and Embassy, like we see that Instagram is being used a lot. Is that mainly like for clients, or does having that social presence help you stay in touch with media contacts as well? Let's start with Karen on this one.
Yeah, we actually really use it for keeping in touch with our both influencers and journalists. So it's really aimed at them to make them aware of what's new about our clients. And we also noticed that it really helps because, of course, journalists get so many pitches and press releases that, if they're scrolling through Instagram and all of a sudden they see a post about something that you maybe already pitched them about, or send out a press release, they might think, oh yeah, that's right. I do remember having seen this. I actually can use it. We really feel it helps.
It's kind of a way like from retargeting, just like keeping top of mind of like, so you pitch them, you maybe followed up, they didn't respond, but then all of a sudden they see it on Instagram, they think, oh yeah, let's reply to the email. Is this something you see as well, Jacob?
Yeah, I think for our Instagram, it's mostly industry focused, and for that, it's tastemakers, it's friends, it's brands, and it's media and influencers. I think the real sort of approach we have though is just sharing stuff that we feel is really interesting, either from our brands or just from an industry or stuff we're doing on the weekend. So I think we're a little bit more playful with ours, but it's still very important to us.
Cool. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. like we've done some research, and also like some research, like we had a talk last time with journalists, and we did a survey, like pretty big survey in March, around like how you pitch journalists and how you build your contact list and so on. And we, for example, like something that amazed us was that only 2 out of 5 PR professionals use LinkedIn for their research, while just 1 out of 5 uses Twitter. Is this something that surprises you, or do you guys use social media as well to approach journalists, Jacob?
For journalists, I think for research, a little bit in terms of, validating that, this person is actually a journalist and a person is, just kind of doing some background checks, and I'll look at their LinkedIn and verify it with their image and other on for their bylines. But I mean, in terms of reaching out, I really try to stay away from that. I mean, my number one, like, I really want that business professional email to reach out to. And if it's absolutely, this journalist is on the money and it's like, okay, I need their contact and I want to pitch them, I'll reach out on LinkedIn and ask for their email, and then basically take that conversation to traditional email. But
you try to avoid it whenever you can because of not wanting to intrude in their personal life. Is that something that journalists are sensitive for as well?
I mean, I guess I feel that way. I feel if I don't have an established relationship with this journalist, I shouldn't make that call unless they specifically say it's cool to reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn. But usually I'll use it to try to get the professional contact.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Karen, as I understand that Embassy like specializes in more than just PR, and there's a big kind of content strategy and creation involved. Does that change the relationship with media as well, or doesn't it really?
I don't think it really changes the relationship because, I mean, the way we are approaching them or working with them, it remains the same. But I do think it helps actually if you as an agency are already involved in the content creation as well, because then you can like evaluate whether it's newsworthy for journalists and how maybe you can tweak content to make sure that it is really relevant for a journalist. So I really think it's an advantage if you get to be involved from the beginning in such a project. We did a couple of or many projects where we did like content strategy and creation combined with a PR strategy. We have one really nice example where we worked for a client that made Christmas cards. They did a campaign with a famous Belgian TV host and presenter. And they came to us like, can you suggest an approach? They did not have an ID or anything yet, so we were completely free to develop something. And then we actually worked on a Facebook live stream. So we organized that for them completely, did it from A to Z. And then we also used that Facebook live stream with the well-known person to pitch to journalists and to really make the story newsworthy. So people could dial in and then ask questions to them, what they should write on their Christmas cards. And we really noticed that helped to pitch the story, because it's not just like this brand is having a collaboration with this person. No, we gave it a bit more body by integrating the content creation of the Facebook live stream.
Yeah, so something that I'm sometimes wondering is, with journalists being under pressure, needing to create kind of more news than they used to be in kind of the same amount of time that they have, or responsible for more areas. Like, do they sometimes rely more on the brands itself and the PR teams to help them? I don't know, like easy to just take a YouTube off the shelf that you guys deliver to him and like bring it in? Is that something that you feel that evolved a little bit more in that direction, or is it still like a pretty hard cut between those two worlds, Jacob?
I think for freelancers, I think they're always hungry, and they're always want to pitch a story. So whatever content you can feed them, they're gonna shoot that through their proper channels of their bylines. I've noticed, internally within a publication, they tend to have they have to stick to more of an editorial direction. So, you're trying to align with that, but unless you have something really big or an exclusive, of course, but in terms of just like everyday pitching, different story ideas, I think freelancers are really hungry, and they can really benefit from, having stories already prepared and having content already there on a silver platter for them to pitch.
Especially like these days, and the category that Hauge is really kind of active in. There's so many nice pictures and videos and material probably available at the brand, right? Then it's kind of almost a shame that they kind of would feel too proud to kind of include it somehow. Or do you feel that they still feel hesitant, even like if you look then not to the freelancers, but to the ones that directly work for a publication? Or do you feel that they still have some kind of pride? No, we're not going to include this. We're not going to go that promotional route. Or does it really depend on outlet, from outlet to outlet?
It depends on outlet to outlet, and it really depends on the video. Like if the content feels too branded, media can sniff that out from a mile away, and they'll stay away from it. If it feels like it's fun, or it's an athlete and it adds a lot of value to the readership, and you can use that as collateral to get that content for them to publish. So it's really a nuanced art.
yeah, like everything in PR, I guess. All right, like Karen, like at what time do you decide to involve a journalist? We've had like a conversation with journalists like a few months ago when we had them on the roundtable, and they say like, well, we actually like sometimes like to be involved pretty early on before we kind of like the story is fully developed, because then we can kind of go in a specific direction. Is this something that you guys are trying to do as well in certain cases, or is it just the exception?
Yeah, we sometimes do, especially indeed when we're working on what angle might work or not. And if you're doubting like a little bit whether it's the right way to go, then we sometimes involve our good contacts, and we check with them to see if it would be interesting for them if we worked on a story in that or that sense. But I guess in most cases we actually pitch when the story is all ready. Sometimes also I think because as PR tends to change quite a lot, the stories too. You also want to be quite sure that what you are proposing to a journalist you can actually follow up on, and you don't promise something you can't follow up to. So I guess that's why we don't do it like on a regular basis to pitch before we're sure. But it's more like having the advice or the opinion of a journalist to check, do you think this will work? Is this something you would like to cover or not?
Yeah, makes sense. Jacob, you have anything to add there?
I think I love to just, when I catch wind of something, I know it's obviously for sure going to happen from a brand, just to get a little feedback. And I think that adds value to when we're starting to put together strategy and whether or not there's an appetite for it. But also it kind of helps strengthen that relationship, because there is a sort of exclusivity about sharing a little bit of news with your journalist friends that you trust.
Yeah, makes sense. Karen, on your website, I read somewhere that you're called the Lady of Lists. does that also apply to media lists? Or is it more like?
I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah.
No, the reason it's a good kind of segue into the question, where do you start, right? Because of course the client has an idea, there's a kind of a story developing. How do you make that initial list of selecting who to pitch? What are the criteria? do you start small? Do you start with a big list and then try to kind of like shorten it, or do you start kind of like very small and start adding people as you go? What's your approach on that,
well,
lady
actually,
of lists?
we have a broad like basis already of media contacts. Obviously, we've worked for very different clients in the past, so this basis is already there. But what we tend to do, especially when we have a new client on board, is that we really go and check out which journalists are, of course, interesting for them. And there, it's really all about research, checking. Of course, you have an idea of the type of media or outlets that you want to target, but then who exactly you need there at the editorship, that we really go and research, see what journalists write about, and who we need for a specific story. So we have like these lists, of course, of people that we've worked with in the past and that we know that are interested in topic A or B. But we always like go and fine tune it for each client to make sure that we have everything or everyone that it's relevant for.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And do you then, like, I'm always curious, like, is it the bigger the list, the better? Like, how do you then like approach it? And then you like split these like global list of everything that you'd love to write about you up into, like, I don't know, tier A. I've seen stuff like tier A, tier B, and so on. Is this something that you guys do as well, Karen?
We do segments indeed, because I mean, you can have a topic such as fashion or corporates or IT that is really broad, but then of course you have segments underneath that are, there's still a lot of topics that are, can be interesting for these people. So we do work with like smaller segments or lists within these lists. And then, it's really the case that you make sure that these stay updated as well. So we do use in Impressly the tagging and both by topic as well as clients to make sure that we have the right target audience there.
Yeah, makes sense. Jacob, I also a question for you, like around the list. How do you decide to, like, when to go like personalize to someone, like send a one-on-one page to someone, and when to kind of do the rest in the campaign? How is that kind of decided within Echoes?
Yeah, I know we need to make sure that we're always personally outreaching to journalists intermittently. You know, I think sometimes a week gets busy, sometimes there's a lot of work, and that's not just possible. But I think if you always have those touch points here and there, I think as long as they know, I feel journalists know when they're getting a blanket pitch and when, personal outreach. But as long as they know that you're touching base with them a lot, I feel like it's okay to send those blanket pitches to contacts once in a while. But it's really nuanced. Again, you're sending a campaign, you know that journalist X is, I should really do a personal outreach to him because I chatted with them about this, a year ago or 6 months ago. So I'm going to send him a little note.
But how do you as a team, because of course there's like more people than you as Echoes, how do you kind of like share that knowledge like across the team? Because like, of course, maybe you've chatted to him, but one of your colleagues isn't aware, but he can still kind of use that for personal pitching. How is that kind of handled?
Segments, tags, subtags, and then usually what we do is we'll pull a list and we'll rip it out of Presley and then we'll share it across the agency. And then we all kind of dive in there and we mark who should best reach out to this person. Oh,
okay. So then you kind of decide on, okay, I'm going to assign him to you for this pitch because you've got the best relationship and kind of, so, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah. Because then you, of course, have that angle for personalization. It's going to be much easier than to personalize something to someone that you basically barely spoken with like the past year, right?
Yeah, and there's something tactile about pulling it all down and seeing all that information in a line. And I think we're in PR, we're cursed with spreadsheets but we somehow love it.
It's a hate-love relationship, I'm afraid. Yeah. And is that also kind of a little bit the secret to getting someone to respond to a page, that personalization, or is there like more stuff that you guys do to kind of trigger that response? Because that's the starting point, right? If someone kind of doesn't respond, yeah, it basically stops.
Yeah. I think, beyond that, it's just follow-ups, and then I think it really comes down to the relationship. I mean, if an editor is not getting back, it could be a variety of reasons, and you need to make sure that you're doing everything on your part to make sure that they're getting the right content and that you're maintaining that relationship. Because there could be other external things, but I think you need to make sure that you've done your due diligence to nurture that.
Okay, Karen, you've got anything like to add in the personalizations and strategies that you guys use to implement that?
Yeah, what I really have noticed that really works is when, of course, journalists are people as well, and they have they always like it when they're praised for their work. So when you like open your email and say, I've read this article from you about this topic, I really liked it, and I really see a connection with what you're pitching actually at the moment. Then I really noticed that they reply just so much sooner than when you just leave it and just pitch in general. So when you show that you have taken the time to research their work, to actually read their work, and to check whether something is relevant for them, and also to show what's really in it for them. If you can already address really why it could be relevant for them in a certain case, then they're so much more likely to respond. So I would always check before what have they written about recently, and can I make a link to what I'm pitching.
Yeah, of course. But then I guess it all depends on the fact that there is actual relevance, right? Something that came up with the journalists like last time was that, like they mentioned, of course they mentioned an article, but it's completely unrelated to something that they're pitching, and then they kind of think, job done, personalization done, and they kind of can move on. So I think that it actually needs to be related. I think it actually starts there.
But sometimes. Also helps is if it's not like a relevant article that they've written. Sometimes what we also do is like thank them for a previous publication. You could say, hey, I pitched this a couple of weeks ago. I saw the article. It was really nice. Thanks again for that. Now I'm reaching out about. And then that also helps, because then they remember, that's this person that helped me with the previous story. And then, really build a relationship.
Yeah, the advice that we kind of see and that keeps passing around is that to keep things as short as possible, right? Like use the subject line that's already like as a kind of a headline almost that they could kind of use, and what kind of like rules of thumb do you guys use, Jacob, at Echoes? Are there kind of like reasons, or do you leave it up to the personalization or the person actually knowing that person best to pitch, or do you have certain ground rules around pitching and length and subject lines?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on the subject lines and just like a short pitch, just like the nuts and bolts. And I think it's, when you're going after different segments too, you need to really play around with the subject lines to, one subject line is going to be better for business. One's going to be better for, sort of active outdoor. So we need to make sure that whatever we're pitching, that we're exploring all the segments where it can go, and we're creating appropriate pitches for that. And then it's up to the exec to make sure that they're adding personal touches to it. But we really want to dial in that messaging first.
Okay, cool. So like you kind of give some kind of framework on what your execs can then start playing with, but they need to make sure that some key messages are conveyed in that pitch, and and then keep it as short as possible. Ooh, difficult job. Yeah, that's not easy. Karen, anything that is shared with your team on length of pitches?
Not specifically. I guess it also depends really on the topic that you're pitching. If it's something that needs quite a lot of context, or if it's like a very technical topic, you might need a bit more words than when it's something quite straightforward. But yeah, we do agree that, I mean, keep it as short as possible, in the sense that nobody likes to read an email where they have to scroll 3 times down to see the end of it. Same goes for journalists. So we try to keep it as short as possible, but of course, while giving relevant context that is needed. So it's really finding the balance between both. Yeah,
makes sense. Now, like, we get to a little bit of a I don't know, like a hot topic, and that's like following up with your pitches. There is, of course, probably following up one time too many that we've kind of heard, or like even following up by phone call. Have you seen my email? Like what are the kind of best practices you guys use on following up, Jacob? We of course see this as well, right? When we follow up with clients 1 or 2 times, like oftentimes the 3rd time kind of gets the best results. So sometimes it works. But of course, there is that balance again of like not being annoying or kind of like damaging the relationship. Like, where's the line at Echoes for you guys, Jacob?
Yeah, we usually keep it at one specific follow-up for that specific campaign. And then what we do is, if, for example, if you're really surprised editor X hasn't even responded, it's like, well, this is perfect. It's like, they love this kind of stuff. Usually I'll just do like a personal note and a recap, and just kind of give like maybe some of the launches that they would have been interested in the past week, 2 weeks, or some other stories that we're working on, and just give them another touch point there. And then we also do a monthly newsletter to our tight family journalists that kind of, what's up ahead, what was last month, what's going on now, and what's going on next month. And so they can kind of get a good idea of the landscape. So it's just kind of like that remarketing, different touch points for the journalists.
Yeah, and what I like, if I hear the process, how it works, it seems to be like pitching kind of a story seems to be like a little bit of a team effort as well. You kind of recap and, why hasn't he responded? Did you reach out to him? And then you kind of like, it kind of becomes kind of almost a brainstorming session on how to best follow up. Is that do I need to picture it a little bit like that?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And really it's what we got going, because sometimes, you're going to be sending them an email for something different. You can always drop a note about something that happened prior. We like to, we have a little motto here. Sometimes it's like, never let a thread die. Where if you got a thread going and it keeps going and you stick to it, and you can kind of shoot news there. Sometimes you don't even need to send them a fresh email. It's like, I have some threads that are like, probably start a new one. They're so deep, but it's just full of news. And it's like, really, that's what an agency is. It's an agency is relationships with journalists, and that's really one of the main assets besides creative, thinking.
Something that I've been thinking on, and of course I'm guessing like you guys as well, but that kind of comes up when you mention this, is like how important the specialization of an agency actually is in a specific industry, right? Because you cannot do this across a wide range of industries, I suppose. So did you guys specifically chose to specialize in the outdoor and adventure brands that you're currently in, Jacob, because that really like allowed you to kind of do more work or better work for customers?
Yeah, I think it's 2-pronged. I think it aligns with our lifestyle. So, we're much more passionate about the brands we work with. And it's much easier, like if we believe in something and there's something new and fresh, we know whether that's going to resonate, because we're you could say that we're in the sort of active fitness outdoor industry. So we kind of understand the landscape really well. So it helps us curate the brands we work with. And then it also helps us pitch it to the media.
Yeah. Like, and Karen, is that something that you feel as well? If you're like feeling more, I read somewhere as well, and don't know where, that you're a foodie. If you're kind of like talking about like, or can work for food brands, that you're kind of like, are like easier for you to kind of do that pitching because you're passionate about these topics.
Yeah, I mean, of course it helps. I mean, if especially if you're also like doing follow up on the phone, you can express your own enthusiasm that you're super excited about a launch to a journalist, then they will of course sense it as well. So it really helps, but I do think you don't need to be specialized in all markets, let's say, to actually be able to pitch a story. I've worked in the past for clients which were very technical IT stories, or very, very specialized stories. Where I wasn't necessarily an expert in the matter, but I mean, it's your job to make it also for the journalist to make it a story that's
accessible for the public and understandable. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and when you do have those contacts, I mean, they will dig into it deeper, of course. But I feel like if you can convey an enthusiasm and the fact that it's something cool that you're pitching, then it always helps. But you don't necessarily need to be an expert in all the matters.
No, of course not.
And I'd agree. I'd really agree with Karen there. Just sometimes it helps to have a fresh perspective on a certain industry, because sometimes within certain industries people can kind of get stuck in the way it is, and to have a fresh perspective can kind of shed new light and interesting angles. So absolutely. Yeah,
because like if you're really, for example, if you're really into, for example, outdoor and focused on that, media outlets and so on, but you don't see that there's actually a very big opportunity in more fashion segments for you. So, okay. So that's kind of interesting that you can challenge your customer on, listen, let's go that direction or that direction as well, instead of just being stuck in the stuff we know, right? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Is there kind of a like when do you kind of give up chasing a journalist? Like you said, for example, you feel like most of the time he is really like on top of this, and it's something that he really kind of like picks up and so on. But is there a time where you stop, like, okay, now I've kind of done enough, or I'm burning like relationships, or like you get a nasty reply or something? Jacob, is there any times that you feel, and how do you deal with these things?
Yeah, so I mean, usually the 2-star rating is a good indicator that maybe you should find someone else at that publication. I think that's one thing. There's always freelancers, there's always other editors that you can reach out to at a publication. And at some point, I think once you've exhausted, or maybe there's been no response or anything, you can always find someone else that works there that maybe will respond or be interested in some of your clients.
Karen, you have anything to add there?
No, I completely agree. I think there's no good in stalking people who only make matters worse. Of course, you are the one that will still need to pitch other stories afterwards. So I completely agree that we if we really don't get a response from someone at a certain outlet, then we go and try maybe a colleague, or we phone the editorship and we ask who else might be interested in the topic.
Cool. Yeah, makes sense. Before we go to kind of like the Q&A, because we're kind of getting closer to the hour, like is there something that like pitching advice you'd like to give yourself, like before you started your career in PR, something that you've kind of now learned, like by doing this the past few years, that you would love, that you would have known like when you started out? Let's start with you, Jacob.
I think as right when I dived into PR, if I would have just focused all my energy just on pitches, different headlines, and starting right off the bat, really trying to develop relationship with journalists, I think that would have, just jump started. So that would have been a few years, and I could have gone a few years in a few months. It kind of took a while to really, really get that down. So I think, yeah, as long if I would have focused on that more, I think I wish I would have done that. But yeah,
why do you think it kind of like took you some time to realize that the investment in relationship is actually worth it? What do you think it was that you felt that it was not your place or kind of to do this? Or
yeah, it was two things. It was, I think it was coming from digital marketing, where campaigns from more of a meta level, and then also just understanding the industry. You jump into PR and you're like, oh, journalists just post stuff, you send them for free.
yeah.
How does that happen? So you start to figure out the industry, and then you start to realize, like, no, that like your main asset as a PR pro are your relationships, and then just your ability to create different pitch headlines and create different angles from a story to send it out. So I think people getting started off in PR, they should really, really focus on those two.
Okay, cool. All right, and then we've got a question from someone in the audience for you, Karen. So I'll just read it out loud. You can see it here. Hi, Karen. Just a quick question on the digital magazine. How big should it be at most? How many stories? How many times produced? And what is kind of a realistic frequency for something like this? So yeah.
So what we do now, because for upcoming kickoff days, we will do a similar format again. So for us, it's 2 times a year, really, with the new collections, so fall, winter, and spring, summer. And yeah, how big should it be? I guess it depends on how many clients you have, and also how many news they have to announce. So what we did, because we have a broad range of clients in different sectors, is we split it under topics, and then journalists could quite easily click on whatever interests them. So if it's food, fashion, lifestyle, kids, and then see the relevant articles there. So yeah, I guess it depends on the portfolio of the agency.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. But it does take a lot of your effort to kind of develop these magazines. But you do feel that it's kind of worth like all that work and production, because it is expensive to kind of deliver these things, right?
Yeah, it takes indeed a lot of time and effort from the team. But we do feel, just because of the fact as well that it's really like ready-made content that journalists can quite literally copy paste, that it really helps to get the story out there for the client. So yeah, it's an effort and it's an investment, but we do feel that it's worth it.
Yeah, and this is not really like a question, but maybe like interesting to kind of from Younes it's coming. As a former journalist, I would have a tip. Thanking a journalist for a piece he wrote is not always the best option, as you could feel he did not challenge the topic enough. What you can do is saying, for instance, the paper journalist wrote had some resonance with the sector, let them know they have influence. Do you feel, Jacob, that could be kind of a nuance that could be powerful?
Yeah, I mean, I like to give sometimes feedback, whether praise on specific points that they made, or if different amendments that I thought they should have gone more in depth with. I was like, that's a great point, but you should have gone a little bit more in depth with that. And I was going to mention prior to Karen's note, one thing we really try to push with the brands is to share those articles and to tag the journalists in it, whether it's across social media, because they're basically sharing with all their followers, or their readership, if it's in a mailer, the article. So it's actually building up readership or followers or clout with that journalist or publication. So it's kind of cross-pollinating, and I think that has a big value to publications and journalists, and and that's the ultimate praise, I feel.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. Yeah, there are like tons of more questions that we weren't able to get into. I feel like we can keep on talking about pitching, which is good, and we will at some point. But no, this was great. You guys did awesome. I think like we've got a lot of interesting bits and pieces out of this. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us and answer these questions for us. We will send you a nice Belgian gift for Karen. Yeah, well, you are Belgian, so it's not going to be that special. Jacob, like you'll have like a little bit more fun with it maybe, but we'll get these things your way. So, and for everyone who joined or hasn't been able to join, we will follow up with recording and some bits and pieces. We will also ask Jacob and Karen to share their details or like a link to their website, whatever they want, so you can kind of dig in and follow them a little bit closer. The rest of us, thank you so much for joining live. As I said, the recording will be available. Next time, we'll be talking about podcasting and how to pitch to podcast people. So that's coming up. Keep an eye on your mailbox if you're interested in joining for that. Thanks so much, everyone, and take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Karen. Bye.